Well, I just read this for the third time this year. Not Heart of Darkness also, just The Secret Sharer. Though I still think Heart of Darkness and The Secret Sharer would be a great band name, a great album title. Maybe a great essay title. What's that? Heart of Darkness and The Secret Sharer. When you recontextualize something, you change it. I remember there was a collection of poetry called Alien versus Predator. I'm like, that's so funny. I remember all the grad school poets were hating on that guy. But I think a title like that is clever. But it's wild to read a work a lot. So this was my third read. I didn't finish it until April, but it was my March read. So I've read the 16,000 word The Secret Sharer, 1910, 3 times this year. And each time I kind of tried to approach it a little differently. The first time I read it with Heart of Darkness. And, this whole book, read the introduction a couple times. Did a little cursory online research. The second time I just read The Secret Sharer, none of the surrounding stuff. It was interesting. I really enjoyed it that time. Nabokov said the best reading is rereading, and I can see why he'd say that. But initial readings have their own great pleasures too. I do think it was like the second time I read The Brothers Karamazov that I was just like, what an experience. And when, on a reread, you get the very cool experience of knowing the characters really completely from the very beginning. So the scenes hit different. But quick recap. The Secret Sharer is the story of a boat captain. He is on a steamboat, I think. No, it must be a sailboat. A pretty big craft. And he's along the coast of the Gulf of Thailand. And he's new and he's younger than pretty much everybody on board the ship, but he's the captain who's filling in for somebody else. And because the story is based in part on a historical incident on board the famous tea ship, the Cutty Sark, and in part, we can know like all the details of, why that person was replacing that person, at least in one multiversal version of the story. Anyway, near this ship is another ship, and that's the one that's based on the Cutty Sark. It's called the Sephora in this story, which I looked up, and it means beauty known for beauty. So that makes sense. There's a makeup store now with that name. It was really weird. Right when I read that line in this book this time, the secretary at the nearby desk where I'm working turned to me and said, when I was working at Sephora, and she went off on, I'm like, what? I think I sent out some psychic brain waves. This guy. You there, sir, in the trees. Yes. Are you my double? So anyway, this boat captain, one night, he like kind of idiosyncratically trying to be generous, but he realizes it's weird as soon as he does it, offers to take the night shift on deck, pacing the deck and keeping an eye on things. And the rest of the crew's like, really? You're going to do it all yourself? Okay. And they retired from something. But from then on, they kind of had their eye on him like he's a weirdo. But during that shift, the captain looks over the side of the ship and sees a man hanging onto the rope ladder that's been left over the side. And he pulls the man up, who's been like treading water and swimming, just trying to stay afloat until he found that ladder. Finds out the guy had killed somebody in an incident on the nearby ship, the Sephora, and then he made a break for it. So the captain is kind of, seems like the person's in a sympathetic position, and that the murder sounded almost justified. Certainly not the act of like a homicidal maniac. And he hides him in his cabin, gives him a sleeping suit like his, a pair of pajamas. Gray striped, very interesting, because I think this story has some Asian ideas in it, the most notable being yin and yang. And black and white are used really, often. And gray represents this middle ground, like they wear gray striped pajamas, how Twin Peaks, In that cabin, they exist in the shadow space between their two selves. But it's just such an interesting story because it's a literally interesting story, but it's also a metaphorically just as interesting story And it's it's a doppelganger. It's a shadow self, but they're also people. Anyway, hijinks ensue. Not exactly, but there are laughs in this story. Actually, The Secret Share. When I read them both in January, I liked it much more than Heart of Darkness. Which Heart of Darkness was a younger work from a younger Conrad. I think he only got better. But like, there's good laughs with both. This whiskered, I think they both have red hair, which I'm going to check for that next time. There's this like first mate type character who's all, blimey, governor, that type. Bless my soul, that kind of stuff. He's got prominent whiskers. And then when the captain, main character, meets with the captain of the other ship, the Sephora, that guy's also a comic occasion, I think. Conrad's witty and funny and uses understatement. There's maybe a Kafkaesque quality to his work a little bit. And I don't mean that in a confusing the trial sort of way. I mean, just like it feels rich. This time when I read The Secret Share, I read 3 scholarly articles along with it on JSTOR. And I read one paper by Daniel Curley. Its title was The Secret Share, A New Narrative. And it was published in some journal like 20 years ago. And that one talks about looking at what a writer includes and doesn't include in a work, because he identified 3 major threads in this story. There was the historical event that happened on the Cutty Sark, where a man killed another man and maybe tried to swim for it, committed suicide by swimming for it. So there's a line in here that like there's a difference between committing suicide and just seeing how far you can swim until you get exhausted. Someone who does such swimming. Anyway, Curley identifies these 3 threads. The historical incident that happened on the Cutty Sark. It was written about somebody hit another person with like a yardarm or something like that. Well, Curley says there's the story, there's what's autobiographical from Conrad's own life, like being a captain on such a boat. And there's the incident that happened on the Cutty Sark that Conrad had read about. The autobiographical parts added the setting and situation. Talks about the story having clearly established situations, settings, and moral centers. In real life, a captain had died of the Otago, and Conrad replaced him. He took command of a ship in 1866. The Cutty Sark was built in 1869. It was a tea ship, and in this story, it's changed to be a coal ship. Both are of empire, you know. The incident took place in 1880. In the real-life incident, it was a white person killing a black person, and they had fought before and had like a rivalry, and he hit him in the back of the head with some sort of club implement. According to Curley, Conrad's story Falk tells of events pre-Secret Share. That's interesting. He leaves all that out here. There's also connections to his story Lord Jim and the Shadow Line. You can get a book, The Log of the Cutty Sark. Oh, Curley writes, Conrad removed all details that would support Legat being evil. The main character's name is Legat, and this writer even points out that the G's are doubled, the T's are doubled, and the secret self is hidden in an L-shaped room. Legat is a person of doubles, and his name connects to everything. Conrad added the story. Storm. Oh yeah, in Conrad's story here, The Secret Share, the incident was done during a storm. The killer saved the whole crew by putting the sail into something called a reefed foresail, which I looked up once and will look up again because I can't remember the specifics. It's like a cribbed half sail. He made it much more dramatic and like an act of determinism rather than an act of free will. And so he removed everything that would make it simple and make it evil. Because, yeah, the story is yin and yang, and the characters are the black and white elements and the black and white dots. But, or do the dots represent external things? In real life, Conrad's crew was really sick, and all the quinine had been sold by a previous captain that he was hoping to use to treat people with. Conrad has taken care to eliminate all possibilities of an automatically imposed correct situation. Curly. That's so cool. That's just good writing. My friend Tim Howard, who's the great songwriter Soltero, and has put out many albums and songs as Soltero. We worked together at a coffee shop in Boston back in 2001. And he's just one of the great people in my life. He once explained his songwriting process to me, and he said he writes very specific first drafts, and all the specific stuff tends to fall away. And like he'll take out the very center of something sometime and sing around it. I'm like, that's really interesting lyrically and poetically. Ship doubling back and forth, doubled bunches of bananas hanging up. And I don't like this little rip emerging here. I'm going to have to tape this further, but oh well. Dang it. Narrator. Oh yeah, and Curly points out also that another meaning of the secret sharer is that the narrator is finally sharing the secret. But that's a good title that has a little ambiguity, I think. Actually, I don't know what Curly's essay was called. I think it had something to do in its subtitle about looking at a writer's process, looking at what a writer uses and doesn't use, because there really are good insights, and I think I would benefit from reading that again. I'm going to try to read everything on JSTOR and be really familiar with it on this story. Why not? I have 100 free articles, and I can do that on 3 email accounts. Once in a while, I'll go just scholar on something. Like I read everything written about the movie Bonnie and Clyde one time. Every book, anyway. Pretty much everything online. But Curly's essay is a really good one, and it's like 12 pages. It's good. There's a lot to it. But then I read one called The Secret Sharer, A New Interpretation, and that one's by Jeffrey Myers. This is like my handwriting is usually better than this. I was like jotting this stuff down. But in this one, he really thinks that the whole story is about Conrad's dad. Conrad's dad was Apollo Korzeniowski, poet, translator, and failed revolutionary. He tried to get Russian government out of Poland. And Conrad's mom died when he was only 7. She died of tuberculosis. And then his dad died when he was 11. And I mean, I've been around revolutionaries before. I've been around Mark Rudd from the Weather Underground. He lives in New Mexico, and I've like been out to his place and got to know him for a little while. But if you ever watched the documentary Weather Underground, you'd be like, whoa, you know that guy? Yeah, that's Albuquerque. But and then I've read a lot about David Brower from the Sierra Club and other such people. When you get people, and when you work with people that are just like really intense on like 1 or 2 issues, it's an effective but sometimes unpleasant intensity. Like when I lived in Las Cruces, I used to canvass with the Sierra Club to try to save Otero Mesa from having just oil wells put all over it. This like amazing grassland down there. I remember this one guy I worked with who was totally like that too. But anyway, so this was a neat lens. I think there's so many lenses you could put on this story. Like, and on a conscious or unconscious level, there's probably some truth to this. You know? That's why so many interpretation possibilities can exist. It's because they're all possible. We don't know what our unconscious minds put into our own work, what we're expressing from our society, from this or that frame around our existences. I mean, you could even do a distant reading of your own life, like think of yourself as a data point, you know, in much bigger pictures. Legat's name, that word echoes legacy. Legat is Apollo's legacy. The sleeping suits symbolize. Sleeping suits symbolic. What are they symbolic of? Through this paternal surrogate, Conrad finally achieves peace with his father. The two are in morbid conjunction. This was an interesting article, but it was only 4 pages long, and it cites only 2 works. I was like, I gotta write something like this. Why am I so daunted by academia and those outlets? I could write a 4-page thing with cites 2 sources. I'm like, really? You can do that? Okay. I read a 3rd one as well. What was it? It was longer. What did I get out of it? Maybe I read it too distractedly at work. Oh, it's been compared to Billy Budd. Yeah, I need to read that by Melville. I was just so struck by the beauty of the writing in so many places. You know, not to quote Nabokov again, but I remember his in an introduction he wrote to a copy of Lolita I read. I'm not a Nabokov superfan, but I do love his translation of Lermontov's A Hero of Our Times, though I do hate his commentary on Dostoevsky, which is just so wrong. He's always all, Dostoevsky just wrote everything on a whim, just dashed it out. Like, I've read Dostoevsky's notebooks. You're objectively wrong. In this breathless pause at the threshold of a long passage, we seem to be measuring our fitness for a long and arduous enterprise. The appointed task of both our existences to be carried out, far from all human eyes, with only sky and sea for spectators and for judges. His dominant trait was to take all things into earnest consideration. Yeah, that might be something to ruminate on. High school or college paper on. Why was the tea changed to coal? Coal has tea makes revolutions happen. But coal brought the Industrial Revolution. Maybe the biggest one of all. If there's a revolutionary scale, coal might be farther along it. Like it or not, things like coal and leaded gas cause huge explosions in technological development. Oh, think about that too. The ship is called the Sephora, beauty known for beauty, and it's full of coal. That's kind of funny. It's as superficial as beauty can get. Beauty known for beauty, the reputation of beauty. And it's full of coal, and this guy swam from that. So the ship itself is a sort of yin-yang type thing, but also illusory. Beauty masking power. This really stood out. Reminded me of like a visual sequence in like It Follows. This character in the water where you can see the body but not the head. There's a lot of really beautiful visual scenes, phosphorescent water and so on. Here he's looking over the side of the guy. "What's the matter?" I asked in my ordinary tone, speaking down to the face upturned exactly under mine. "Cramp," it answered no louder. Then slightly anxious, "I say, no need to call anyone." "I was not going to," I said. "Are you alone on deck?" "Yes." I wrote, "Did Woodhouse read Conrad?" I mean, yeah, that could be a Bertie Wooster exchange, you know? That's funny. A sleeping suit, oh wait. Sleeping suit of the same gray stripe pattern as the one I was wearing. Wow. Conrad's stories have good art departments. Yeah, it feels like he has like Wes Anderson's attention to detail in his scenes. Conrad was originally from Poland, and but he makes these characters both Conway boys, British Conway boys. They're from the town of Conway, which I looked up, and it's been since 1970. It's been called Conwy, going back to its oldest name, from the Welsh, kin meaning chief, gwai meaning water, gui meaning water. So chief water, biggest water. I always like the Navajo name for where the San Juan and the Colorado met, where water and water come together. Beautiful. You find out just how unsympathetic the guy who was killed was. He's one of those creatures that are just simmering all the time with a silly sort of wickedness. In the story, the guy who dies is like a white, privileged, flibbertigibbet, slacker. See fit to turn your hair gray. Yeah, I'm on guard for the word gray in the story. Now, next time I read it, I'm going to really be looking for gray. Yeah, and I've got markings from 3 different readings. L's, 2 bunches of bananas hung from the beam symmetrically. It's so rich. It's so full of symbolism and stuff. Conrad's such a good writer. The Conwy River. What does it mean that they're both from the big water? Is that like, you know, evolutionary? Like life on land emerged from life in the water? I didn't mean to drown myself. I meant to swim till I sank, but that's not the same thing. I thought of Camus reading this last time. I was like, man, it hits like that. Like, there's a lot of attention to detail, and it's like the sort of stuff you're almost supposed to not notice, but it's totally thematic, and it's part of it. Thinking of pinning 2 curtains together, but not doing it. Thinking of pinning the curtains together that separate you from this other self, but not doing it. It's full of strange little human moments. I didn't mind being looked at. I liked it. And you speaking to me so quietly as if you had expected me, made me hold on a little longer. It had been a confounded lonely time. I don't mean while swimming. I was glad to talk a little to somebody that didn't belong to the Sephora. I forget the name of the ship that this all takes place on. I missed it. I saw it was the Otigo in real life, but I felt more dual than ever. Dual more than ever. The dual working of my mind distracted me almost to the point of insanity. 2 red whiskered figures. Yeah, this was published in 2 parts in issues of Harper's Magazine back in the day. 1910, probably written 1909. Written while taking a break from the Shadow line. Well, this is a funny scene. I want to see the movie and see if they made this funny. He to make the rival ship captain not be suspicious. He shows the captain every part of the ship, basically, even though the guy does not want to see it all. It's really funny. You follow me and I gazed around. My intelligent double had vanished. I played my part. Very convenient, isn't it? Very nice, very He didn't finish and went out brusquely as if to escape from some unrighteous wiles of mine, but it was not to me. I had been too frightened not to feel vengeful. Felt I had him on the run, and I meant to keep him on the run. Huh. Well, if both of the foils are red-haired, that's interesting. I just skipped through a lot of pages. Here he thinks that he had been a coward not to just let the man swim away. The night, clear and starry, sparkled darkly, and the opaque, lightless patches shifting slowly against the low stars were the drifting islets. On the port bow, there was a big one, more distant and shadowily imposing by the great space of sky it eclipsed. Oh, but I mentioned Nabokov's intro to Lolita earlier and then went off. I can't remember. But the reason I even brought that up is because he talked about nobody could ever really know the book the way he knew it because he'd spent so much time with each line writing it. But that's something that a reread can do, is it can put you closer to that author level appreciation of a work. I feel like I've read Rick Bass's short story, The Hermit Story, and retyped it up myself so many times that I feel like I know things he never wanted the public to know about the story. I know exact word counts for paragraphs and sections and thematic, symbolic stuff encoded into that one. I wrote an essay called The Instructor's Story that started out as me just typing up that whole short story from Rick Bass and then replacing all its words but kind of keeping its themes. Almost all its words. And keeping its number of paragraphs. And I read Annie Dillard's Holy the Firm 17 times over a few years. Most of those in 1 year, 12 times. Wrote some about that. Learned it. I mean, yeah, it's wild. When you obsess over nonfiction and try to get answers, it's that's a different level of literary engagement. It just started one day. I was like, what happened to the little girl from Holy the Firm? Was she okay? I tried to look up the true story based on it and went down rabbit holes. That it was only very loosely based on an incident that I found the flight records of, in which no little girl was even writing. But it was also based on the real world reality that there are kids that suffer such injuries, and it is horrible. I appreciate that book. I like Holy the Firm. I get it. It's just the genre is not nonfiction. It's vision. Lighting the spirit lamp. That felt like a significant beat, but I'm still puzzling out what it means exactly. Well, no, it's pretty obvious. He's about to let the guy escape. Both their spirits are going to live again. They're being unburdened of each other. Something like that. The story happens between realms. And they have to bring the ship in so close to land to let the guy go. And the captain has to explain it. Just trying to get a land breeze. And everyone's like, oh no, you are insane. She will never get out. You have done it, sir. I knew it had ended in something like this. She will never weather, and you are too close now to stay. She'll drift ashore before she's drowned. Oh my God. Anyone remember that song, Oh My God, by Ida Marie? Circa 2010. Very good song. Like an audio panic attack. Funny. And then even by the very end, you get this great closing image of this hat that he gave his double to protect him from the sun after imagining himself out in the sun. And the ship needs to turn around to get away from the coast, and they need a point of reference to mark where the currents change because of the depth's changing. And there's the hat, and so the captain sees it and it saves him. The hat had drifted off his friend. Off his secret self. His secret SHARER. And I watched the hat, the expression of my sudden pity for his mere flesh. It had been meant to save his homeless head from the dangers of the sun, and now, behold, it was saving the ship by serving me for a mark to help out the ignorance of my strangeness. Ha! It was drifting forward, warning me just in time that the ship had gathered sternly. Towering black masses. This could be such a cool movie. I kind of think it would be really neat to see it in silvery black and white, that movie Control, directed by Mark Romanek. But really play up the darknesses and the looming blacknesses and so on. Black and the white. Proud swimmer striking out for a new destiny. If the secret sharer was a superhero, he'd be like Pretty Boy Floyd. That's what he got through saying. Some will tell you of a stranger who come to beg a meal, but underneath his napkin left a $1,000 bill. I guess that's Robin Hood like too, right? That could be like, Batman could have done that instead. Bruce Wayne could have just been a guy that secretly gave out money and helped people. The secret sharer. Oh, I did a deep dive on this cover. I was trying to find out who the cover artist was. It's likely Milton Glaser. I found a comment online to that effect. Someone posted this on a Pinterest page, this cover. And I looked up a lot of Milton Glaser art. He's very famous. He did the I Love New York logo, that famous Dylan poster I've mentioned before. The National Medal of the Arts design. So many classic book covers, like all those Shakespeare covers that are half drawn, half painted. I don't know if he did this individual one, but he did some of the, yeah, there's his name, Milton Glaser. I'll be honest. Hello. Just a second. Measure for measure. Two gentlemen of Verona. Glaser is the uncle of Gabby G. of Luscious Jackson. He has a book, Sketch and Finish, Journey from Here to There. It's a documentary to inform and delight the world of Milton Glaser. I will look that up. Robert Indiana influenced Glaser. I went into Robert Indiana's house in Vinyl Haven, Maine. And there's still a love sculpture out in front. It's the guy that created that iconic love sculpture, Love, just the letters stacked up. It's been a stamp, it's been everything. But so Milton Glaser might have done this. But Risa, a teacher at the school I've been working at, she is a graphic designer and teaches graphic design classes. She looked at this cover and thought it might also be Bradbury Thompson. And I looked up Bradbury Thompson, but he's got one cover where I'm like, yeah, that kind of looks like that. I can see why she said it. But I'm still leaning toward Milton Glaser. I'm going to follow up on that. I'd like to know. And this will be my reading copy this year, and I know it's going to get beat up and marked up, but I'll try to get another copy as well. I see this one around. So The Secret Sharer, I recommend it. Read it for the 3rd time this year. Going to read it 9 more times. And every year I'll pick one book to do this on this channel. I think that's a cool idea. Because that means like my readings aren't just all super superficial ones. You know, maybe we'll start to get at some deeper depths. I read it. It was good. I'm getting new context and stuff. I'm going to read this year too. Reader's Guide to Joseph Conrad. Looks awesome. Maybe I should read some more double-related works. I've read this before, of course, but that's a classic one. Somebody's double just shows up to work and replaces them one day. What? And I was thinking I should read this from the nonfiction paperback section. C.G. Jung, The Undiscovered Self. It does feel very Jungian, The Secret Sharer. I think this would add a lot to that reading. Maybe I should read this, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, to go with it. If I do, this will go back on the mainstream paperback shelf. And I think this is a classic doubling story. Killing People by David Brin. Love it. Sci-fi. You can put your consciousness into as many copies as you want and then download all their information at the end of the day. Incredible. I was watching this old Farrelly Brothers movie yesterday. I remember seeing this in the theater in 2000. And Jim Carrey, Renee Zellweger. But it's about a guy, Rhode Island trooper with split personality disorder. It's interesting. It kind of creates its own moral universe where somebody who occasionally just goes insane, commits all sorts of crimes, is just somebody living with lovable quirks. Reminded me of Severance quite a bit, which is another doubling story, of course. I really feel like I picked a good book for the reread this time around. Joseph Conrad, The Secret Sharer. It's excellent. One other note, I just realized today I have this nice, large New York Review of Books copy of Lazarillo de Tormes, which I recently read for the paperback project, which is really good. A 1554 picaresque novel. But I was struck looking at this. I was like, wow, it kind of pays design homage to this one right here. And then I was looking through and the pages match up 1-to-1. It's like an exact scan of this other copy. This one's a little marked up. Oh well. from somebody else. Anyway, that was cool to discover. And interesting to see how the New York Review of Books works. I didn't know they just did direct scans like that. No wonder they can put so many out. Hey, that's cool. Worked for Dover. I think they usually get a new introduction or something too. I'm going to add that Jung to the currently reading pile because that will illuminate my next reading. Hey, Chris. Currently reading / to read, something like that. A mix. Also currently reading. As recommended by Liminal Spaces. It's very Brodigan-esque. I didn't know I would have read Tom Robbins much sooner if I'd thought of him in the same mind as Brodigan. Yeah, so The Secret Share by Joseph Conrad, 1910. It's a good book. It's like a long short story. Sometimes writers writing about it put it in quotes like it's a short story. Sometimes people put it in italics like it's a novella or a novel. It's kind of close to the length of a sci-fi novelette. Is the novelette even a thing? This book also has a list of selected bibliography in the back that's pretty awesome. Other works by Joseph Conrad. Yeah, he's got one story with a very problematic title. I would not want to read that in a cafe today. Selected biography and criticism. Conrad the novelist, Joseph Conrad the making of a novelist, Joseph Conrad a critical biography, is that the one I have? Political novels of Joseph Conrad, The Tragic Vision, Variations on a Theme in Literary Interpretation, The Great Tradition, Joseph Conrad, Achievement and Decline, Conrad, Paradise of Snakes, an archetypal analysis of Conrad's political novels, Joseph Conrad and the Fiction of Autobiography, Conrad's Eastern World, The Art of Joseph Conrad, a Critical Symposium, Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness and the Critics, Conrad the Novelist, Joseph Conrad, The Making of a Novelist, Joseph Conrad, a Critical Biography. Well, this implies to me he was certainly much more celebrated and read about and explored in the 60s than he might be now. I'm sure he's still got his fans. Once in a while, like, people will really surprise you who they're keeping alive. Met with a bunch of writers at for this new Nob Hill News newsletter, or subscription-based newspaper I'm going to be writing for. And one of them was like, I just love Milan Kundera. Whoa. Yeah, you know, people like who they like, and they read the books they have. And, you know, immortality is such a strange thing in the literary sense. You kind of get it, but kind of nobody does. You get extensions of your life, you know. Maybe you live on in some influence. Ultimately, everyone ends up, at best, a crumbling statue in the desert. Like, and then sometimes languages change so much that, like, how do you even read the past stuff? Oh, you want to read Beowulf? Take a class. Or read this new translation, updated. Hope you're liked enough that people will do that. We ain't seen nothing yet. We could see some sort of sci-fi hive mind evolution where we all become a giant global consciousness and shed all the trappings of this world as we head off into the cosmos to explore and be immortal and think godlike thoughts. These books tell me that can happen. But for now, it's so cool to keep alive the parts of it all, you know? So if anything like that ever happens, I hate to say it, but we'll probably miss it by a couple centuries. Dying right before discoveries of immortality. The our generation story. I mean, I really am intrigued and fascinated by the idea that you can't explore a work completely. There's obviously an infinite amount of context you can view a work in. You know, like, do you understand everything? And then there's so much within the work itself. You can explore inward and you can explore outward. It's pretty great. There's so many levels for thinking about it. And you can look at, like, how people have thought about it over the years. Add these new levels to it just from the study of it. You can get artsy with it, you know? I mean, I would really want to read The Secret Sharer by Robert Silverberg is a direct sci-fi adaptation of The Secret Sharer by Joseph Conrad. And there's a movie, and there's a woman really prominent on the poster of the movie. I'm like, did they make the double a woman in that one? That would be interesting. It's all Cinemax 90s. No, it looked like I mean, I'm intrigued, but they probably added some other elements. I'll have all these videos at the end of the year, and I can go through them and take notes and fortify those notes and knock out a literary essay or something on the secret share. If I added an autobiographical element, it could be a chapter of book 2 of my book. Who is the secret sharer of my own life? Some aspect of me. I don't know, but art's great. This is a good read. You don't have to read it 12 times, but you should at least read The Secret Sharer once. I was looking at another copy in a classroom, the school I work at, and the two are still paired together, but it had a kind of boring modern cover. But it had an introduction by Joyce Carol Oates. I started to read a little bit of it. I got distracted by a student's story of seeing a parent as a homeless person. Whoa. As a homeless male prostitute. I don't think that student was joking. Like, dang. Kids, it's wild working the front desk at a high school because, people don't live in a vacuum. And I see all these students that I've had as students in various classes, particularly in this long-term English assignment I had. Like, I know I'm like, oh, I've worried those students might be homeless, or I've worried this student might come from an abusive household, or in the case of a past school, no, never mind. Anyway, The Secret Share. It's one of those stories that will make you think about, I don't know, stuff or whatever. The Secret Share. This is for all of you that came here via the YouTube shorts of this page. I think I need to reread the third article I read on this because I'm like, do I remember anything from it? All right. Well, take care, everyone. Thanks for watching the channel. Yeah. Hope you're all doing well.